The opinions expressed on this show do not necessarily reflect the views of the Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network.
Hello everyone, and welcome to Connecting with Kim here on Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network. I'm your host, Kim Droege. We're excited that you joined us today. We have another great show coming up. Before we get started, we would really appreciate it if you would like and follow the Connecting with Kim and the Tampa Bay Arts and Education Network Instagram, Facebook, and X account, where you can find out everything about the show, about my guests, and about my on-air wardrobe, which is provided by the Spring of Tampa Bay, located at their store at 4415 West Osborne. The Spring of Tampa Bay provides safe spaces and empowering services for survivors of domestic violence, and they do a great job. You can also catch the audio of our show on Sun Radio 96.3 FM and on your favorite streaming platform, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon. I work very hard every week to bring you information about people, places, and organizations that can help you live your best life here in our corner of paradise, and today will be no exception. So we're so happy to have this gentleman returning to our show. He's a regular guest. We love having him on. It's always inspirational and educational all at the same time. So let me introduce to you the property appraiser for Hillsborough County, Mr. Bob Henriquez. Welcome back, Bob.
Well, Kim, it's always a pleasure to be here. And I didn't realize I was inspirational, but okay,
You
let's go.
are. I find you inspirational.
Well, thank you.
I really, really do. So, we like to start out because we have folks moving in and out of Tampa Bay and Hillsborough County all the time. And although we know you really well here, I think it's always great to share your life journey.
Okay.
And that will be of interest to everyone, and so they get to know you, because they may have just gotten this in their mail, and we'll talk about that. But it's always good to hear. You have such an interesting background, so I want you to share it.
Well, a blessed background. I was born and raised here in Tampa, Hillsborough County, 5 generations. My family goes way back. My great-grandfather actually was the last mayor of West Tampa. A lot of people don't realize that West Tampa was its own city until 1925, when it was annexed by the city of Tampa. And so I've been around here a long time. I graduated from Tampa Catholic High School. Was blessed to have an opportunity to go to Princeton University. It's the first of my family to graduate from college, and had the honor of going there. And then I always had this dream to go away to college. I played college football and received my degree, and then I came back to Tampa, which was always my aim, was to come back and give back to this community that we all love so much. The folks that helped me along the way. So I've had the opportunity through my journey in public service to serve in the state legislature from 1998 to 2006. All along that time I was coaching high school football as well. I worked for the county for a while. Worked for the Department of Children and Families. The governor appointed me to be the circuit administrator for Department of Children and Families for Pasco and Pinellas County. Took a break again from public service to work in the private sector, and then had the opportunity to run for property appraiser. And the rest is history. I've been here since January of 2013, and the voters have seen fit to bestow the honor of continuing to serve in this position for the last now over 13 years.
I know. I remember when you were first elected that position, so
yeah,
I can't believe
I wasn't frosting my hair as much.
No.
Had more hair, so yeah, absolutely.
I can't believe it. It's been 13 years, my goodness. We always have you on at this time of the year, and we try to stay away from, mentioning what time of the year is, but we all know what time of the year it is. We have all gotten in our mail, hopefully everyone has gotten what we call affectionately the trim notice, right? The trim notice front and back, right? And this is a notice of your proposed taxes.
Yes.
Property taxes for the year. Mm-hmm. And so let's take a moment to talk about trim notices, because property taxes is a hot topic right now.
It is.
In the state of Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I have a feeling will continue to be a hot topic for the foreseeable future. So let's at least talk about what does your trim notice say and do, especially for people that might be receiving this notice for the first time?
It's your notice of proposed taxes, and that's your real estate portion of your taxes that you pay each year to the tax collector. You don't pay me. I don't raise or lower taxes. I just assess, or our office assesses the value of property that people own in Hillsborough County, as well as any exemptions that they may qualify for that relate to their property taxes. That's important for folks to know, that this is simply the real estate portion of their taxes. So there's other things on your ultimate tax bill, like garbage fees, stormwater fees, a bunch of those other things that aren't on this. But really, it's everything. Again, going back to my roots, Hispanic roots in Tampa, the paella that ends up being your taxes at the end of the day. All the things that go in there,
Yeah.
it really is there. So it's your assessment. It's any exemptions that you may have. It's what your assessment was last year versus this year, whether it went up or went down. And it also, there's a column there for what, if the tax rate would be for the taxing authorities to accrue the same amount of revenue that they did last year. So there's different columns. What we encourage folks to do is take a look at it. It's a very important document. It's online as well. And if you have any questions, concerns, give us a call. And folks are doing that right now as we speak, so that we can go over it with you and better explain what goes into the assessment, what goes into your that goes on your notice of proposed taxes each year. And it's also important because if for some reason they may disagree with the assessment in one way or the other, if we can't answer those questions or satisfy them, there's a 25-day period that goes into September for them to actually file a value adjustment board petition if they see fit, to challenge or disagree with their assessment or an exemption they may not have received.
If you're a brand new resident into Hillsborough County, let's say you bought a home in Hillsborough County since January. Right? Because we know that the assessments of the property are based in January.
January 1st.
Right.
Yes.
What your property is worth as of that date. And then you pay your taxes at the end of the year, right? Taxes are due in November. Right? So, so let's help those people that are brand new to Hillsborough County understand, what is the most important exemption that they should go on your website and start and pay attention to, and if they haven't filed, file for it?
Well, first let me clarify. So as you spoke to, the notice of proposed taxes, trim notice that we've spoken to, that you receive in August, is based on the value of the property as it sat January 1st of 2025 in this case.
Right.
And so if you purchased a home, say in 2024, for the remainder of the year that you were, and if it was an existing home, or if it was a new build, whatever it may be, the value that's on your trim notice is based on how it sat January 1st, 2025. The remainder of 24, you were basically under the previous owner's homestead or whatever the value was, the amount that you were paying in taxes. That's where a lot of people get tripped up, because then they receive their trim notice. They may not have realized that, let's say somebody's lived in a home for 15 or 20 years, they had the Save Our Homes cap, they were paying on an assessed value that was much lower than the actual what the home is actually worth,
Right.
In today's market, and so they may be paying a lower amount for the remainder of the year that they purchased it in. Now, January 2025, there's a reset to the just or market value,
Right.
minus any exemptions or cap that they may have brought with them if they move from another homesteaded property in Florida.
Right.
And so that's important for folks to understand. In terms of exemptions, probably the most important exemption is the homestead exemption.
Right.
So if it's if it was your primary residence as of January 1st, 2025, then you're eligible to have filed a homestead application, and they can still do that up until 25 days past the time that we mail the trim notice. And that's up to $50,000 off the assessed value or the just or market value of the home. And so that's probably the one that folks are most familiar with, and maybe ones that people sometimes miss out on, particularly if they're coming from another state that they didn't have
that kind of thing,
something
right.
that was similar
Yeah.
to homestead exemption. So that's probably the one. But then there's a number of other exemptions for folks that have disabilities. Perhaps they're they're military folks that have either all paid the ultimate price, so their spouse is entitled, or they've been injured in combat, first responders. I would just encourage them, take a look at the brochure that comes with your trim notice. It speaks to, there you go, there's your prop.
Look at, I've got the brochure that comes with your trim notice. And here you go. All the information you need to know about exemptions, accessing the website, etc., filing, because
Yeah, it's a lot. And again, for folks that maybe it's their first time home buyers that just come here, they may not know all the things that are available. And one of the things that we've strived to do over the course of the time that I've been in office is to try to find as many ways to reach out. Text messaging campaigns, public service announcements, these kinds of interviews. We want folks, particularly folks that may be in underserved, communities,
right.
to receive all of the benefits that the Constitution or the state law allows them to,
Right.
in terms of tax breaks for their property taxes. We're not in the revenue business. We don't want to hide the ball on anybody. We want folks to pay not one dime more than, because I guess they're doing away with the penny. So, one dime more or a nickel more.
Well, nickel,
than they should in property taxes. And
Right.
so, we want folks to give us a call, to go on our website, chat with us. We want to communicate with them however they want to communicate these days, and try to help folks as best we can.
We kind of have two populations going on in Florida as far as home buying and moving. We've got existing Florida people,
Right.
either downsizing, upsizing, whatever they're doing. So they are moving house. And then we have people coming from outside our state who are relocating here either for business reasons or retirement reasons or whatever the reason is. And, you get a lot of information when you're looking at a house, and taxes are one of the things you look at, right?
Right.
But I always say to everybody, you got to remember that person, if you're coming from out of state, that person's probably homesteaded. So, like you said, everything's going to reset when that house sells from them to you. And so your taxes are going to reset, and you can help cap your property taxes, because we have that in Florida, by filing for the homestead exemption.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, a lot of the discussion that's going on related to property taxes and the increases are really related to the larger issue of economic insecurity that we're all feeling.
Right.
And so, property insurance skyrocketing and the cost of living generally. But the folks, honestly, the ones that are feeling the increase in property taxes, and you're hearing a lot of stuff out there, are really first-time home buyers or folks that are moving homes in which they're feeling the reset.
Right.
For the existing property owners that have been here for a period of time that are covered by the Save Our Homes cap, their assessed value can't go up more than 3% or inflation, whichever is less. Now, we know that we had a couple of years of high inflation for various different reasons coming out of the pandemic, but generally now, inflation has been less than 3%, or maybe hovering around that number. So they're not feeling it as much. We don't have lines, out of the office with people with pitchforks and yet and lanterns, that are coming to get me. So it really is more about the folks that are feeling the effects of what has been a very healthy real estate market, driven by a lot of the things that you're talking about.
Oh, very healthy.
As people are coming down. Again, if you're coming from New York or wherever, maybe you were fleeing during the pandemic or whatever you were doing, and so you come down and you're willing to pay whatever, the values have gone up. And we are not in a position, by law, we have to assess the value of the home based on the just market value at 100% of that value,
right.
Minus some cost of sale and some other things adjustments. So, if people are paying more for the homes, then it's going to reflect ultimately in the value of the homes, which ultimately then are going to translate into, higher property taxes, particularly for those new home buyers. And that's what a lot of those folks are feeling. We'll see what comes about in terms of how that's going to be addressed, and maybe we'll talk about some of those things.
Well, I'd like to, because you are one of the few elected individuals who has actually put forth a proposal. Everybody's talking about property taxes right now. There's various and sundry proposals, from all the way from doing away totally with property taxes to somewhere in between, because property taxes funds a lot of things, which, if you read this, people, from front to back, you would understand what property taxes actually fund in our county.
Right.
But because there's also sales tax and there's also fees, and they fund things also.
Right.
But you're one of the few individuals to actually put something forward. So I would love to, for you to share your perspective on this whole topic. Whatever you feel comfortable with.
Yeah. First of all, again, just understand the process for folks that are watching.
Yeah.
We assess the value of the property. The taxing authorities, City of Tampa, Hillsborough County School Board, special taxing authorities like the Port Authority, Aviation Authority, Children's Board,
Right.
individual other communities like City of Plant City, City of Temple Terrace. Each of them have the ability to set their tax rates based on the revenue that they desire or for their individual budgets. So a lot of this is coming from the fact is it really a property tax issue or a spending issue, right? And so we're kind of getting to that point now where we have the CFO going around and taking a closer look at people's budgets and making sure with all this extra money that's come in as a result, are they spending it correctly?
Right.
And so, I'll leave it at that, but that's something that's going on. The taxing authorities set those tax rates. We don't. The property appraiser doesn't. So I don't raise or lower your taxes. And people all the time when I'll walk into a coffee shop and say, "Oh, you're the guy I send a check to." No, you're not sending me a check. I wish I was. You were in some ways. You're paying my salary, which I appreciate, but not necessarily sending me the check. So that's important for folks to understand the way the process and where we are in this process. I think from the standpoint of concrete proposals, there really hasn't been one yet, or one that's really realistic. And so, as you spoke to, property taxes fund a lot of stuff, and the vast majority of what it funds is public safety, and we can all agree that that's an investment that we're all happy to pay. We want the fire engine to work.
When you dial 911, you want the fastest response possible.
Yeah,
you're the one dialing 911.
Exactly,
right?
and you want the fire engine to start, and you want to have trained
responder to be there and help you out.
And depending on the community, that may be 60% of what property taxes fund. It all depends. And so this idea that somehow that we're renting our house from the government, that I understand that's a good soundbite, but the reality is we're paying for services as well.
Right, paying for
the question
services.
is how much services and how good those services are and where all the other money is going. So I understand that discussion as well. So I like to break it down this way, and I'll talk about the proposal that I had, which is, again, an idea, and I think there's some other ideas out there that I have that really get at real changes in the property tax, because reform is necessary and healthy in all areas of government to talk about. But ultimately, I think we need to break it down to what I call the 3 Ps whenever you're talking about, and this is the way I've always looked at my public service and how I've kind of approached things philosophically outside of the partisanship and the parties and all that other stuff. But really, I think how we should look at things and be reasonable is that there's the 3 Ps. There's politics, there's policy, and then there's practicality. And it applies to this issue of property taxes more than anything. And so the politics of it, the politics is the sound bites and what gets, what creates the outrage, or how you kind of get people focused on a particular issue.
Yeah.
That's it. Or just in this case, listen, this is a nonpartisan issue.
Everybody pays
property taxes, and nobody likes it, right?
Well, we had I think part of the issue is we had a perfect tsunami happen in Tampa Bay area. We had property taxes, you had property values rising. We had property insurance rising and also being denied, and then we had car insurance rising. We had everything that
groceries, everything all at once, right? And so I certainly understand that, and this is nothing new. About every 20 years, it seems like we revisit the idea of property taxes. When right after I left the legislature, Marco Rubio, when he was speaker, and probably looking towards what he was going to run for next. Well, and I don't mean that in a bad way, but it's just the reality of it is.
It's the reality.
He brought up the same idea of either eliminating or doing away with, in some way, doing away with some portion or all of property taxes. So it's nothing new from that standpoint. So the politics of it it's a healthy political issue for somebody to take on. I understand, and it's a worthy discussion. So we can throw all that stuff. So there's that. The policy side of it is when you give it to the legislature. Sort of, I don't have grandchildren yet, but I've always heard that that's the greatest thing, right? You could play with them and then hand it back when the poopy diaper's there. This is sort of how this is. Here's we're having a great time with this. Here's the poopy diaper. Now you guys fix it. Well, the policy of this is very complicated.
It is, yeah.
As with any big issue,
right?
Nothing's simple, and so The reality of it is that property taxes, every state in the union have property taxes in different forms.
Right.
Everywhere that they've tried to do away with property tax completely, including I think North Dakota, it's failed on the ballot because when people really look at it. So the policy of it is going to, and the issue is that you have conservatively $55 billion statewide of property taxes that are collected, and there's some portion of that is being spent maybe wastefully, or that you can trim it. We found that at the national level, and that's where a lot of this is being driven from.
Right.
But the reality of it is there's probably not $55 billion worth of waste, and a good percentage of that goes to things that we do care about, public safety, schools, and other things as well.
Right.
So the difficulty is, how do you adjust, how do you reform, but at the same time, either replace that revenue or figure out what portion of it needs to be replaced. Well, the only other real major revenue source in the state is sales tax. And so do we want to pay 12-14% sales tax? Well, I don't think we do.
Well, the problem with sales tax is if you increase it, it affects certain parts of the population disproportionately.
Sure, it's a regressive tax.
It is.
And again, it's not very stable, because depending on economic upturns and downturns. And I can see, listen, if I live in the Panhandle, I'll go to Georgia to buy my car, right?
Exactly.
So that's a portion of it. So, if you believe that we have to replace some of that revenue, where does that come from?
Well, and on top of that, we don't have an income tax in Florida.
Yeah, and that's not going to happen. And all of this has to be a constitutional amendment. There's really the idea that I had does not, and we can get into what that idea. There's some things I think we can do without having to be a constitutional amendment. First of all, I think there's some things that we can do. Again, the ones that are being disproportionately affected, the ones that are crying out for help the most, are the new home buyers.
Right.
So there's a reset. So again, in round terms, if you buy a home and the previous owner had been there 15, 20 years, covered by the cap, and they were paying based on an assessed value of say $200,000, but the home is worth $700,000-800,000. Well, when it resets to the value of $700,000 or $800,000 minus your exemptions, $50,000 up to $50,000, homestead or whatever it may be, taxes go from, say, the previous owner was paying $1,500, now all of a sudden yours are $6,000 or $7,000, and they call the office. I didn't know this was going to happen. That's the ones that are being. One of the thoughts that I had is if you could phase in that reset, so they were paying, say, a third, and a third. So, and particularly, let's say it's your first home, right? You got your first great job, and you just got married, and kid on the way, and you buy your first home, and you're excited about it. Now, maybe you can build that into your pro forma for your budget more easily if it's not all in 1 year.
Right.
Ultimately, the taxing authorities get their money, but it would be, it would be phased in. That's one idea that I had. The one that maybe is a little bit easier. Is to tie, because ultimately, if you really look at where the amount that property tax has gone up, particularly for homesteaded properties, and again, I think that the tendency is policy-wise is to focus on homesteaded properties, but in terms of the actual property tax system, they're the ones that are not being affected the most. Right? But they're the voters, right? And they're the ones that care the most, and the ones that are going to ultimately
and be the most vocal
and decide whether it's going to pass on the constitutional amendment. Yeah. So that's a tricky policy issue, for them to deal with. My thought was really it's property insurance. Now there's some things that the legislature and the governor have done with their special session has slowed a bit the increase in property insurance, and some things they've done with the legal ability to sue and all that. That's helped some. Couple of hurricanes didn't help very much. And so ultimately, when you look at the amount that property taxes have risen, even with values going up versus how much insurance has gone up, that's really the thing that's you have the property taxes shiny object over here, but we still need to deal ultimately with the property insurance issue. So my thought is tie the two together. So if you were to have a property tax refund or rebate that was tied to your increase in property insurance. And this could be funded through discretionary funds that every year at the end of the legislative session when they're figuring out the budget, there's a pot of money there that's the one that they pay for the sales tax holidays on school supplies and other things like that. Yeah. And it's in the billions.
Yeah. It's a big number.
Yeah, it's a big number. And they could fund a program, and it could be a pilot at first, and it could be monitored over the course of time, and renewed over the course of time, so it's not something in perpetuity. But in the meantime, what I would say is, let's say your property insurance goes up 15% or more. You could tier it if it's 15, 20, 25, whatever it may be or more, and give a property tax refund of some number. It could be $250, it could be $500, $750, or whatever number, it could be more, to the folks whose property insurance has gone up like that, for their homesteaded properties in particular, if you wanted to do that. And it would more than cover your increase, because the average increase of property taxes, if you're homesteaded, is somewhere between $250 and $500 a year.
Yeah.
Okay. If you
That's
were getting
what mine is. I'm
so
homesteaded.
you would more than cover that increase, plus help cover the increase in your property insurance in that given year, to help soften the blow as we kind of figure this all out. It's received some, interest from.
Well, it's received some positive comments.
Yeah, and I've spoken to, including Lawrence McClure, our own Lawrence McClure, who's the head of the budget committee, or budget chair in the legislature. So we'll see, but I think there's real ideas out there we can look at, and hopefully that'll be part of the discussion that the legislature, the select committee from the House and the Senate President's office and others, and the governor will come forward with some real concrete ideas that aren't just playing politics with it, but that really, I think, will get to the crux of reforming property tax, property taxes in Florida that will, you could go too far and put something on the ballot that fails, and then what have we gone through? I think in pulling everybody together and coming up with some real ideas for the long term that are going to help fund government in a proper way, but that are also going to help the individual property owners that are feeling the pressure, economic pressures completely everywhere we go, right?
Well, I told you, we're out of time, and
Okay.
it's always inspirational and educational when you're on, so I was absolutely right when I called it. Thank you for being my guest today. If you're just joining us on Connecting with Kim, my guest today in the chair was the property appraiser for Hillsborough County, Mr. Bob Henriquez, who is always a wonderful guest on Connecting with Kim, always has great ideas and information to share with us. So we're out of time. I know, it goes lickety-split, and we never have enough time, but again, another shout out to my sponsor, the Springs of Tampa Bay, for providing my on-air wardrobe. You can find their store at 4415 West Osborne here in Tampa. And thank you for joining us today on Connecting with Kim. I'm your host, Kim Droege. Please come back next week so that we can share more information with you that helps you live your best life in our corner of paradise. So thanks so much. So long.